Welcome yogis. Today's practice is about reducing our levels of stress, and for this we're going to look physically into our psoas muscle. Our psoas muscle is one of our hip flexors. Hip flexors are sitting at the front of the hip and they work on bringing the thigh and our chest towards each other. Our body responds as a stress reflex by shortening the psoas muscle in order to protect the soft areas of our body, our belly, and with our intestines inside that. So whenever we have a lot of stress into our body, this muscle automatically becomes tight. The other thing that happens is, especially when we're sitting down a lot during the day, is that this psoas muscle can become quite weak. We're sitting with a little bit of shortening into the hip flexor when we're sitting onto a chair, and that muscle will in that position become quite weak. So today's practice, we're going to look both at strengthening and increasing the level of flexibility of this muscle, and that will help us to feel more grounded, and it helps us to circulate energy throughout our body. So this muscle and the stress reflex that we have relates very much of a fear of failure that we have. And it's interesting to see that exactly where our psoas muscle sits, that's also where our sacral chakra is, our Svastisthana chakra, as it is called. And this chakra is about exactly the same things as our psoas muscle is related to. It is very much about letting go of the fear of failure and letting go of the idea that we are not good enough. And with that comes an inability to express our emotions, which reflects again into the tightness in the psoas. So our focus area is the psoas muscle and our Svastisthana chakra. Now let me tell you, before we get started, a little bit more about the psoas muscle. So the psoas muscle attaches high up on the lowest vertebrae of our thoracic part of the spine. That's the part of the spine where the rib cage is attached to. So it sits really quite high, and it sits on the inside of the spine, and it attaches also to your diaphragm. So the diaphragm is the muscle that you use to breathe. It sits just here underneath your rib cage. And therefore, when we have tightness in the psoas muscle, it also impacts our ability to breathe deeply. So the psoas muscle starts here high up on the inside of our spine, and it attaches to all our vertebrae of the lower back. And from there, it moves through our hips, and it attaches on the inside of the femur, lesser trochanter, this part is called, so high up on the inside of the femur. So when this muscle contracts, this is happening. Our knee and our chest move towards each other. Now you can imagine that if you have tightness in the psoas, that it pulls the lower back in the direction of the attachment point onto the top of the femur. So this is the result. If you have a tight psoas muscle, you will have an arch into your lower back. And you might think that when you have an arched lower back that you're good at backbend, but what you often find is that you're actually not, because it's the tightness in your psoas muscle that restricts you. We need a lot of opening into the hip flexor in order to be good at our backbends. So when you have a position like this, when you easily stand or sit in this position, it often indicates that you have a tight psoas muscle. Now, the other thing is, what can be the case, is that your psoas muscle is weak, especially if you're sitting a lot, as I mentioned before. Then what happens is that this muscle really loses its strength. And in that case, the opposite happens. In that case, your spine will be quite flat, because the muscle doesn't have a lot of activity in it, a lot of strength in it to find this natural curve. So the psoas, you have two things. If you have a tight psoas, you'll have a little bit of an arch into the lower back, or maybe a lot of an arch into your lower back. If you have a weak psoas muscle, then you will have more of a flat back. And if you have a weak psoas muscle, then what you will see is that you will find it hard to lift your knee towards your chest. Now we're going to look at all of this into our practice, so let's get started. And to get started, we're going to come onto our back, and we're finding a bridge pose, bring the knees up towards the ceiling, laying down, and just to find a bit of space and opening into the psoas muscles, we're just going to lift the hips up, and then we're releasing it back down. Then we're releasing it down, we want to feel each vertebrae connecting back into the ground. So we're rolling it up, slowly releasing the vertebrae off the ground, and then really lift your hips up as much as you can, and on the exhalation, slowly roll your spine back down. So we'll be working both on strengthening and in opening on the psoas. So here we just find a little bit of an opening by lifting all the way up, opening up through the front of the hips, and then release it back down. So our aim would be here to have at least a straight line from the knees to our chest. And if possible, we would like to lift our hips up a little bit more to get a little bit more stretch into the front of the hips. So we're going to do that one more time. Rolling up, and then once you're up, we're going to stay here. Now use your hands and see if you can bring your hands underneath your hips and then find a little bit of support there and stay here for a moment. Try to connect here into the front of the hips and just feel the sensation and see if you can find a little bit of a stretch. If your hands can't go underneath your sacrum, don't worry about it. You just bring them next to your hips, for example, wherever they can go, or maybe you just hold yourself up without using your hands. And then on your exhalation, slowly release it back down. And then once you're down, hug your knees into your chest. Now we're compressing into the psoas muscle. See how close you can bring your knees towards your chest. Keep on drawing it in. Feel how your lower back is pressed down now into the ground. And then bring your legs straight up towards the ceiling. Instead of having your legs straight up, now let them just go down a little bit, and now hold it here. Press your lower back firmly down onto the ground. Maybe feel with your fingers that you cannot move your hand underneath the lower back. Press your belly button down into the ground and let that secure the psoas muscle. We're just going to hang out here. So now what's happening is our psoas muscle has to contract, an isometric contraction here, so it just has to hold our legs here. If we would not use our psoas muscle, our legs would just fall down with gravity into the ground. So we're just hanging out here, finding a little bit of activation in our psoas. The psoas muscle is the only muscle that attaches the lower back and the thighs together. So we have a lot of muscles that connect the hips and the legs together, and we have a lot of muscles that connect the hips to the spine, but we only have one muscle that connects the spine to the legs, and that's our psoas muscle. So you might start to feel that it gets a little bit hard, and maybe your legs start to sink down a little bit. I think maybe mine do as well. But try to just stay there, and maybe you feel a little bit tired now. Keep on pressing your lower back down into the ground. So you might have a tendency to do this. Try not to do that. Try to lower your back down into the ground. And then slowly release. Bring your knees back into your chest and squash here into your hip flexors, into the psoas muscles. Sometimes when you do this, you feel a little bit of pinching deep into the hip. That is your psoas muscle or your iliopsoas muscle. So the psoas and the iliacus come together and they kind of become one muscle as they attach at the top of the femur. The iliacus is that muscle that sits just in the inside of your hip bone. So you have like an ear-shaped bone here in your hip. The iliacus just sits on the inside. And when we press our legs in like this, and there's compression in these muscles, you sometimes feel that there's quite an uncomfortable stretch. It's actually quite okay. It's just a little bit of discomfort. So we're going to do this one more time, bringing your legs up, and then slowly lower them down, only a little bit, so that gravity can pull onto the legs. Now press your lower back firmly down onto the ground, and we're just holding here, trying to really become aware of the activation of the core, where we press the core down into the ground so that the lower back is not lifting off the ground. And at any time, if you're not sure, just use your hands, your fingers, and see if you can bring them underneath. So this is not really about the core, even though you'll feel your belly muscles active as well. This is really about your hip flexors, and you might feel that at the front of your hips. Anyway, you might feel these muscles. These are part of your quads, and you feel that they're active as well. They do a little bit of a job as well of the hip flexor. They are a hip flexor. But here we're trying to really work our psoas muscle deep down inside. And as I mentioned before, it sits so deep you cannot touch your psoas with your hands. Keep on breathing here and keep on pressing your lower back down. Also, if you start to feel that you get a little bit tired, just let that happen. Don't worry about that. Just feel that sensation of tiredness, of tiring. And then draw your knees into your chest. Give it a nice little squeeze. Feel maybe into that gentle pinching sensation in the front of the hips and just soften into that. And from here, we're going to come up into a standing position. So maybe you can roll yourself up and down, or maybe you just want to move yourself up to go into a standing position. So as we are standing, we're just going to have a little bit more of a look on how we stand. So our standing position, our psoas muscle is heavily involved in this. If we are standing, if we find that we're standing with an arch into our back, and I'm pretty good at that, that indicates that your psoas muscle is tight. And what you'd like to do is you'd like to prevent that. So you want to tilt your hips like this way, so that you press your belly button in the direction of your spine a little bit. This helps to lengthen your psoas muscle a little bit. So that's the right position where we're trying to feel that the tailbone lengthens down a little bit. If you feel that when you're standing, you actually have a really straight back, in that case, you want to really arch your back a tiny little bit, finding a neutral spine position. We're going to find a little bit of a flow, just to find a little bit of heat into the body. So on your inhalation, reaching high up. On your exhalation, fold yourself forward and down, and we'll doing a moon salute to start. So on your inhalation, have a halfway lift, bringing your left leg back, bring your knee down onto the ground. Take a moment here and feel into your hips. Your next inhalation lifts you up into your low lunge pose. So bringing your hands first up and then interlace your fingers and bring them behind your head. Now you might have a tendency to bring your belly button forward and from there to lift your chest up, as I'm showing now. If this is your tendency, then see if instead of pushing your belly button forward, if you can push your belly button away from your front knee and lean back more. So maybe the difference is quite subtle, but we're trying not to lean forward to go back, but we're trying to lean back from our belly button, and that stretch will move into the hip flexor, into your psoas. Take a deep breath in. On your exhalation, stay in this position. Just release your hands, bring them behind your head, and reach now with your index finger towards the back of your back knee. Keep on reaching, keep on opening up. Now, automatically, your belly button will have to move away from your front knee. That's why we're here. Take a deep breath in. On your exhalation, releasing your hands down and straightening through your front leg, just for a little bit of a release. Stretch into the hamstring. Bending your leg and stepping it back here into your high plank. Taking a deep breath in. On your exhalation, push it back, downward facing dog pose. On your inhalation, roll your spine all the way back forward into your high plank. Then bring your knees and your chest and your chin down to the ground. Keep your hips high up. On your inhalation, bring your hips down and lift your chest up into a cobra pose. Keeping the hips down onto the ground. On your exhalation, push it back. Downward facing dog pose. Staying onto the right side, so on your inhalation, lift up through your right leg, and on your exhalation, step it forward in between your hands. This time the back knee stays off the ground. Sitting down nice and deep into your runner's lunge. On your next inhalation, round your spine a little bit, and on the exhalation, lengthen a little bit more. On the inhalation, round a little bit. And on the exhalation, lengthen a little bit more. One more time. On the inhale, round. And on the exhale, lengthen. Staying here, try to keep your left hip as low to the ground as possible on your inhalation. Reach yourself up. Push your belly button away from your thigh. Reach your arms high up. Take a deep breath in here. And on the exhalation, interlace your hands behind your back. Reach now with your index fingers towards the back of the knee. Open up a little bit more. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, release your hands, straightening through both your legs into your pyramid pose. Just for a release and a little bit of stretch, connection into your hamstring, into the back of your leg. Exhaling here fully. On your inhalation, step your back foot forward, lift your chest. Exhale, going forward and down. Bend your legs. Inhale, coming all the way up to standing. Straighten your legs, reach up. On your exhalation, draw your hands into your chest. And do that again for the other side. Inhale, reach it high up. Exhalation, folding forward and down. Inhalation is a halfway lift. So this time we're stepping the right foot back, bringing your back knee down onto the ground. And just take a little bit of time here, feeling into the back of the front of your back leg. Finding that connection. And then on your next inhalation, reach it all the way up Bring your arms up overhead and then interlace your fingers behind your head. Now let your head just rest into your hands, no pressure into the back of the neck. And then feel that you can press your belly button away from your left knee. So leaning back from your belly button. Activating here slightly into your glutes, so into your buttocks, especially with your right leg. Finding a little bit more support into your lower back as you do that. Keep on opening up here. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, release your hands, interlace your fingers behind you, and reach your index fingers towards the back of the knee, opening up a little bit more. Your next exhalation brings you out and finds you into your half splits pose. Just a releasing half splits, stretching into your hamstrings, letting go of that stretch into the front of the leg, the front of the back leg. Exhale fully. On the inhalation, step it back into your high plank. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, push it back, downward facing dog pose. On your inhale, roll it forward. Bring your knees down, bring your chest and your chin down onto the ground. Inhale rolls it up into a cobra pose. The hips stay down and we lift the chest high up. And on the exhalation, push it back, downward facing dog pose. Exhaling here fully, staying on the left side. So on the inhalation, reach your left leg high up. And on the exhalation, draw your foot forward and all the way through. Your inhalation lifts you up a little bit. Staying there for the exhale, lowering your hips down. Finding that connection into the front of your back hip. Exhaling here. On the inhale, round a little bit. On the exhale, lengthen a little bit. Lower your hips down. On the inhale, round a little bit. On the exhale, lengthen. One more time. On the inhale, round. On the exhale, lengthen. Now on the inhalation coming up, trying to keep your hip as low to the ground as possible. Reach your arms high up overhead, finding yourself here into your crescent lunge pose. Now lean your belly button away from your knee. Don't let it come forward. Push your belly button away. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, interlace your hands behind you and then reach your index fingers towards your back knee. Keep on opening up here, feeling that connection into the front of your right hip. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, landing both your hands on either side of your foot, straightening your legs. Find your pyramid pose. Exhale fully. On your inhalation, step your back foot forward. Lift your chest. Exhale forward and down. Bend your legs. Inhale, pull yourself all the way up to standing. Exhale, draw your hands into your chest. You should feel a little bit more warmth now into your body. Staying with your breath, take a deep breath in. On the exhale, release your hands. On your inhale, reach it high up. On your exhalation, fold yourself forward and down. Your inhalation is a halfway lift. On the exhalation, step your left leg all the way back. Bring your knee down onto the ground. Staying here just for a moment, feeling here into the front of the left hip. Activate into your core to push your belly, your belly into your back. Keep on sinking down. Now pull your right foot slightly back, maybe a centimeter or two, or maybe a little bit more if you have more opening into the front of your left hip, and then come back up into your low lunge. Now you should really feel that in your hip. Maybe bring your hand onto the area to find a better connection. Feel the tightness here of the muscles. And then feel how you can push your left hip in the direction of your right heel. That's the direction it wants to go. On your next inhalation, reach your arms overhead and then interlace your hands behind your head. So you just want to support the head as we begin to lean back as much as you can. This is about your hips, it's not about your chest. So keep on leaning back. Belly button moves away from your knee. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, release your hands and then interlace them behind you. And again, pull your index finger towards the back of the knee. Not by lifting the hips up, but just by releasing the hips forward and down. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, releasing and straightening in your front leg, letting go of any tension in the lower back area. And shortening now into the front of your left hip. Find a little bit of length into the back of your front leg. And from here, we're going to step it back. High plank. Take a deep breath in here. And on your exhalation, push it all the way back. On your inhalation, roll yourself forward. On your exhalation, it is your knees and then your chest and your chin that go down towards the ground. On your inhale, roll yourself forward into your cobra. Lift it up. Stay here. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, sink yourself down. On your inhalation, reaching back up. Opening up. The hips are down and the chest comes off the ground. On the exhale, release it back down. One more time. On the next inhalation, reach it up. Open it up. Now feel here that you can lift your chest a little bit more. That you can create more space into the front of the hips. And on the exhalation, push it back. Downward facing dog pose. Staying with our right leg. So on the inhalation, lift your right leg higher behind you. On the exhale, step your foot forward and through. This time the back knee stays off the ground. On the exhale, lengthen and deepen into the hips. On your inhale, keep your hips where they are, but just breathe into your back as you're rounding. Exhale, lengthening. Inhale, round. Exhale. One more time. Inhale, round. Exhale. Now on the inhalation, coming up, sitting down really nice and deep into your hips, pressing your belly button away from you, reaching up as much as you can. Take a deep breath in. On your exhalation, stay here. Interlace your hands behind you. Reach for the back of your back knee. Open it up. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, release your hands. Straighten both your legs. Pyramid pose. Feel the connection into the back of your right leg. Your inhalation steps you forward. Straighten your legs, lift your chest. Exhale, going forward and down. Bend your legs. Inhale, reach it up. Exhale, draw your hands down through your forehead, your throat area, your chest, your belly area, your sacral area, down towards the earth. Inhale, reach it up. Exhale, push that energy down. Forehead, your throat, your heart, your core, your sacrum, down into the earth. One more time, inhale. And exhale. Inhale, reach it up. On the exhalation, folding yourself forward and down. Your inhale is a halfway lift. The left leg stays in front. On the exhale, stepping your right foot all the way back. Bringing your back knee down onto the ground. Just take a moment here. See how you feel. What's happening here in your body? What's happening in your mind? Remember that our sacral area, our sacral chakra, relates to our fear of failure. Or this idea that we're just not good enough. So see if you can let go of that. If there's anything that you feel in that area, see if you're judging yourself or already telling you the story that you're just not very good at back bends or that it's too hard to open up into this muscle. So from where you are, pull your left foot a little bit back, maybe a centimeter or two, or maybe a little bit more if you want to challenge yourself more. So now your knee is more over your toes, and that will give you a bigger stretch into your psoas muscle, into your hip flexors. So on your inhalation, reach it up. Sitting down nice and deep into your right hip. Feel here with your right hand into your right hip and allow the right hip to travel in the direction of your left thigh. Feel into that space. Become aware if you're leaning forward and then only lift up through your chest. Try to lean away from your knee as much as you can. It feels like you press your belly button down towards your lower back. Trying to straighten your lower back as much as you can, even though your lower back, of course, is not totally straight. On your next inhalation, reaching your hands higher, and then bring your hands behind your head. Supporting your head here as you open up maybe a little bit more. Leaning back through your belly button, not allowing your belly button to move forward and your chest to lift up. This is not about your chest. Take a deep breath in. Staying here as you interlace your hands behind you and reach now with your index finger towards the back of the knee. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, slowly release, straightening into your left leg, and find that nice release into the lower back, extending over your leg, noticing what is there, shortening into the front of your right hip. Your next inhalation steps you back into a high plank. Find a connection into your core for a moment. On the exhale, push it back, downward facing dog pose. On your inhalation, roll yourself forward back into your high plank. On your exhalation, bring your knees and then your chest and your chin down to the ground. Your inhalation brings your hips down and lifts your chest all the way up. Find that nice reach. On the exhalation, lower down. And then again, inhale, reach it up, using your hands and the back muscles. On the exhale, release it back down. One more time. Inhale, reach it up. Activating into your buttocks, especially if you feel that there's pressure into the lower back. Feel that opening, feel that reach. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, downward facing dog pose. Taking your time here. Reconnecting. And then on your inhalation, lift your left leg high up. And on the exhalation, bring your foot all the way forward and through. So this time the right knee stays off the ground. On the exhalation, lengthen. Sit down deeper into your hip. And on the inhalation, round through the spine. And again, on the exhale, lengthen. And on the inhalation, round. On the exhalation, lengthen. And on the inhalation, round. On the exhalation, lengthen. Now on the inhalation, coming up into your crescent lunge pose, reaching your arms high up overhead, maybe finding a Kali Mudra or just have your hands apart. Keep on opening up here. Push your belly button away so we're not looking for too much of an arch into the lower back. We're just trying to connect here to the front of your right hip. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, interlace your hands behind your head. Still sitting down nice and deep, pushing the hips down and forward. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, landing your hands on either side of your left foot and straighten your legs out. Lengthening over your leg. Exhaling fully. Bringing your hands down, stepping it back this time into your downward facing dog pose. Taking a moment here, pressing the floor away with your hands connecting into your shoulders. Exhale fully. On the inhalation, roll yourself forward into your high plank. Taking a deep breath in. On your exhalation, bring your knees down onto the ground and then bring your chin and your chest down onto the ground. On your inhalation, roll yourself forward. Bring your forearms down onto the ground and come here into your Sphinx pose. So the crown of the head reaches high up, as high as it can go, but the elbows are still grounded. And the hips are firmly down onto the ground and you should feel your pubic bone into the ground. So even though we want to have an active pose here, we at the same time want to feel that we're not over-activating, that we find a little bit of rest as well. See if you can connect in this space, in this position, into that space just above your pubic bone, into your sacral chakra, your Svastisthana, as it's called. This chakra relates to your ability to be creative. And often what happens is when we're children, unless we're very good at, for example, drawing, often what happens is that we're being told, or maybe we tell ourselves that we're not very good at it, and that relates to telling ourselves that we're actually not very creative. When you grow up, you might realize that creativity sits in many things. It's not about drawing or painting or building something. You can be creative in making beautiful pictures or creating yoga sequences that are creative. There's many different ways, but often because of a kid we have been told that we're not very creative. Often that relates into that idea that we're just not very good at it. We're not very good at drawing, we're not very creative, we're not creative people. And so connecting here into your sacral chakra might help you to reconnect to that sense of creativity. One of the things that helps to connect to that area is just to play, as kids do. To just have a little bit of fun and not focus on what it will look like, what the result is, but only focusing on the process of being creative, creating anything. And then monitoring ourselves, that we're not judging ourselves in the process, or maybe if the outcome doesn't look at how we imagined it, that's okay. It doesn't mean we're not creative. It just means that the outcome is different from what we expected. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, slowly release it down. Taking a moment here, resting your forehead onto your hands, and maybe gently wriggling into your hips, letting go of any tension that you might have built up during this little flow or during our Sphinx pose. And then bringing yourself back up onto your forearms. We're going to find a half frog pose. So we're going to bend our left leg to start with, and we're going to pick up onto the left foot with our left hand. Now when we do that, maybe our hip has come off the floor. That's perfectly fine. We're picking up onto the foot, and once we hold onto the foot, we keep on holding on, and we're lowering our left hip back down onto the ground. And from here, we're going to push our foot down on the outside of the hip, the slight outside of the hip in the direction of the ground. Now, maybe you look like this, as I'm looking at the moment. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you have more opening. In that case, maybe you can turn your fingers around so that your fingers go over your toes. And when you have that, you have more like chaturanga arms. And you have a little bit more ability to push your foot more down. Now, we have a tendency here to lower our chest down like this. And that takes that pressure away, makes it a bit more comfortable. But we're not after comfort, we're after change and transformation. So we're trying to lift up through the chest as much as you can. Now I'm sure you can see that with me, that I have actually lifted my left hip here away from the ground. That means actually that I've gone too high, or maybe it means that I'm just being a little bit lazy and that I haven't really been pushing my hip down. So if you have that too, so really feel that you can push your left hip down more, and if that means bringing your chest down a little bit or releasing your foot a little bit, then do that. If the hip comes off the ground too far, we're actually not stretching into the right muscle. Feels very intense for most of us in the front of the thigh and in the hip flexor. The higher your chest goes, the stronger it gets. Now, if you feel that you have a lot of opening, then you're welcome to straighten your right arm out, as I'm showing now. For me, you can see that my left hip actually has come off the floor, so this is not very good for me, but it might be for you. Taking a deep breath in. And then on the exhalation, slowly release your left leg, and we're going to change sides. So we're crossing the left arm over just for our balance, and then we're reaching back for our right foot. Once we're holding on to the foot, we're going to bring the foot forward, and then we're releasing the right hip bone back down towards the ground. Once that's down onto the ground, maybe we can intensify, maybe we can turn the hands so that the fingers come over the toes. It's perfectly fine if you cannot do that. And then push your foot down on the outside of the hip, with the main focus to keep the front of your right hip down onto the ground. So as you can see now, maybe your left hip comes off the ground, perfectly fine. It's about your right hip now. So if you'd like to, you can bring your left hand down onto the ground and intensify. So my right side is much more open than my left side, maybe related that 4 years ago I broke my left hip. So I'm still working through that. But on the right side, I feel that it's much easier to keep my hip down as I push my foot down. So for my right side, I can stay onto my hand and be in the right position, while on the left side, as you could see before, that wasn't the right pose for me. Sometimes we add on, and actually when we're adding on, we're taking away. Always be aware of that. Adding on is only good if it is an actually add-on. If you're adding on and then all of a sudden you can't do the pose very well anymore, you're actually taking away. That's your ego. And it's sometimes hard to control the ego, as we all know. So taking a deep breath in, and then slowly releasing your foot, being very mindful of your knee. And then once you're down, bring your head back onto your forehead, on your hands and wind wipe your knees gently from side to side, whatever feels right for you. Releasing tension in the lower back that you might have built up. And then slowly releasing your legs down, bringing your hands down next to your hips. On your inhalation, roll yourself up into an upward-facing dog pose. The knees can be on or off the ground. Take a deep breath in. And on your exhalation, roll it back into your downward-facing dog pose. Lifting your hips up here and gently pedaling through your heels. Becoming aware of any tension in the lower back and see if you can release that in this pose. Exhaling here fully on the inhalation, stepping or jumping or floating your way back to the front of your mat. On your inhalation, have a halfway lift, and on the exhalation, release it forward and down. Doing that again. So on your inhalation, have a halfway lift. On the exhale, moving forward and down. Now bend your legs, and on your inhalation, roll yourself all the way up to standing. Reach your arms high above overhead. And on the exhalation, draw your hands into your chest. Going to work now a little bit more after our opening up into the hip flexor. Now we're going to work on strengthening the hip flexor. So to get started is we're going to find a balance where we bring our left foot down and we're going to draw our knee, our right knee, into our chest. We're going to bring it in as much as we can, maybe pointing through the foot if that helps to lift the knee up a little bit more. Now become aware that you're not leaning back or forward. The shoulders are still resting over your hips and are resting over your heel. And just find that upright position here. So after a little while, what you will feel is a bit of tiredness, probably in the front of your hip. So let that just happen, that tiredness. Taking a deep breath in. Now interlace your hands behind your leg, anywhere, maybe on the top of the thigh, maybe behind your knee, and straighten your leg out. Keep on straightening out. We're just releasing here tension. We're having the leg just hanging into the hands. Now you can go back to what you just did, or you can release your hands and see if you can keep your foot just where it is. Now you will feel that this is much harder to stay here and to maintain this, and like my leg will start to shake. And that just means that these muscles are having to do a lot of work, and that's exactly what I'm after. So just let that all shake, trying to be soft in your shoulders and your face. And then interlacing your hands again behind your leg. If you had your leg bent, straighten it back out, and let your leg just hang into your hands. So we're going to do this one more time. Either with your legs straight or with your leg bent. Release your hands. Keep on pushing through the heel if your leg is straight. Keep on lifting up through your knee. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And slowly release. Such a good release. So you should feel that really into the front of your hip. All your hip flexors have been firing off, including your psoas muscle. So I quite like to just give it a little bit of release using my fist and gently pushing here into this muscle. And then we're going to change sides, as we do. So we're balancing onto our right leg, and we're drawing the left knee in. Trying to feel how the knee can come towards the chest, just bringing the leg up as high as you feel it is right for you. So feel that you can challenge yourself a little bit more, and I know that in your mind you already know where you're going to go, and you know that you're going to have to do this 2 more times, maybe with a straight leg. So let go of that attachment. It doesn't matter. Maybe you do it 2 more times, maybe you do it 1 more time, maybe this is the only thing you do. And then slowly interlacing your hands behind your leg and straightening your leg out, pushing through your heel, pulling your toes back. So the leg is just hanging into my hands. I'm not actively holding it up. And then here we go. So keep on pushing through your heel, releasing your hands with your legs straight or bent. Try to find that stability here. Keep on lifting up and allowing here your psoas muscle and all your hip flexors to just get a little bit tired. They have to pull up the leg against gravity, so it's a lot of work. And then again, interlacing your fingers behind your leg and reach it up and let the head just hang down. Just want to give it a break here. And we're going to do this one more time. So keep your leg here, release your hands, either with your leg bent or straight, trying to maintain your balance as I'm struggling at the moment. Keep on pushing through your heel, keep on straightening into your standing leg. Keep on lifting up through the knee as much as you can. Softening into the shoulders, softening into your face and in your mind. And then slowly release it down and feel how beautiful it is to release it. Maybe using your fist as I like to do. And gently press into the front of the thigh, releasing these muscles. One of the hardest psoas muscle exercises. Now, that's a nice exercise that you can also do when you're sitting down into a chair. What you do when you're sitting into a chair, you're keeping your leg there. Imagine that I'm sitting into a chair. I'm showing it with one leg. And instead of bringing my knee up, I actually lean slightly back without rounding into my back. So I'm going to be like this into a chair. And by doing that, you'll activate into your psoas muscle. So if you have a job where you have to do a lot of sitting down, use that maybe. So we're going to do one more thing to strengthen into the psoas. So taking a deep breath in. On the exhalation, we're going to sit down into a squat position. Now maybe your feet need to be apart, or maybe you can keep them together. We're going to find a nice little squishy sensation into the hips by hugging the knees, releasing any tension into the lower back that you might have built up. By this nice little lengthening into the lower back. And from here, we're going to reach the hands forward and as controlled as we can, which doesn't have to be very controlled. We're going to sit down just with our heels behind, with our hips behind our heels. Now bringing your hands down onto the ground and then just extend one leg out. Now feel that instead of rounding too much and dropping your chest, that you can lift your chest up. A little bit of rounding into the lower back is perfectly fine. Bringing your right hand onto your right calf, extend your left leg out. So only holding onto your right leg. The left hand is there for balance. Keeping your left leg up, lifting your chest up a little bit more. And then slowly release both your legs down onto the ground. Bring your hands back down and lift your left leg up. Keep it straight, keep on lifting up through the chest. Activating here, feel that activation into the hip flexor. Bring your left hand to your left leg. Keep your right hand down onto the ground for balance. Straighten your right leg out. The leg goes wherever it goes. Keep on lifting through your chest as much as you can. Lifting as much as you can. And then slowly bending your legs and releasing them down onto the ground. Take a moment here, gently shake your legs out. So we're going to do this one more time. And because it's not really about our balance, we're going to keep the hands down onto the ground. It actually makes it a little bit harder with the hands down onto the ground. Harder for our hip flexors, that is. So this is our Navasana, our boat pose. So we're keeping the hands down onto the ground, we're lifting the chest up, and then we're drawing the knees in towards the chest. So I don't care about where your feet go. Maybe they go halfway up, maybe they stay down onto the ground, perfectly fine. Maybe your toes are still down onto the ground. It is about getting your knees and your chest, moving those two towards each other. So keep on drawing them in. Keep on lifting through your chest. We want to feel that we're not rolling back and rounding into the lower back, even though there's a little bit of rounding into the lower back. Keep on lifting here. And then slowly release your feet down. Bring your hands behind you and release into the legs. So we're going to do this one more time. This time we're going to see how far we can extend our legs. So it's not about extending the legs, but we're just going to see if we can. The more we extend our legs, the little bit more work the psoas muscles have to do, just because when we extend the legs, there's more weight that needs to be carried up. So bringing your hands down for your balance, the arms are nice and straight. We're not really holding ourselves up, so the hands are definitely not behind. They are in front, just for a balance. And then bring your knees in and see if you can extend your legs out. They don't have to be all the way straight, they can be. And once they are wherever they are, lift your chest up, maybe look slightly up towards the ceiling, and keep on bringing your knees and your chest towards each other. Knees and chest towards each other. Keep on bringing them together. Keep on feeling that tightness, that tiredness, I should say. Keep on drawing your belly button in towards your spine for another 3, 2, 1. And then slowly release your legs down. And as a reward, just laying all the way down into the ground, extend your arms out overhead and find that full stretch, that full reach here into the front of the body. Taking a couple of breaths here and just noticing the sensations, noticing the feelings. Anything that arises, just let it arrive. Feel that you can let go of any attachment. Taking a couple of deep breaths here, feeling the movement of the diaphragm. So we're trying to breathe into the belly area as much as we can. And from here, we're going to find a couple of back bends. Just to come back to the opening of the psoas muscle after we've opened and strengthened. Now we're going to bring that together in our back bends. So bringing your feet in and finding your bridge pose position. So the hands are going back so that you can kind of just touch your heels. Now if you know that you have more tightness in the front of your body, you push your heels away a little bit. If you know that you have a little bit more opening, you bring your heels in a little bit, just finding what for you the right position is. The further the feet are away from each other, for most of us, the easier it gets. So just feel that. We want to make sure that the knees are pointing straight up to the ceiling. We don't want to wing them out towards the side, and the same with the toes. We don't want to have the toes pointing out. We want to feel that the toes are pointing straight forward. The outside of the feet are parallel to the outside edges of our mat. So from here, we're going to slowly roll the spine up, and we're going to find that opening into the front of the body. So you're welcome to roll your shoulders under more. I like to press my elbows into the ground and reach my hands up next to my waist. And then find this opening into your psoas muscle. So you have an idea now of the muscle that we're working. And that in this position we're trying to lengthen, not strengthen, trying to open up. So keep on lifting it up. Clenching your buttocks slightly, protecting the lower back. And then feel that you're not getting too much of an arch into the lower back. So we want to try to feel that the belly button presses down into the spine. And then slowly release it down. So you can repeat just this. We're going to do 3 more back bends. Either your bridge pose, or you can find your full wheel pose, your Uttanasana. So feel what is right for you. I'd like to go into my wheel after I've done all that opening. I like to use that opening now and work into that a little bit deeper. A lot of things come together into the back bend, into your real pose. It's an opening into your chest and opening into the shoulders. We haven't done a lot of opening into the shoulders, so I expect to feel a little bit of tightness there. So bring the hands down, elbows over your wrists if you're doing your full wheel, or have your hands next to your hips. On your next inhalation, roll your hips up. Keep your shoulders down for a moment longer, exhaling here, and then on your inhalation, if you're going for your full wheel, lift your chest, your shoulders away. Open up. Now, I'd like to always start with my heels off the ground, finding a little bit more space that way. That's how it works for me. That might be how it works for you as well, but maybe it's not how it works for you. Now feel here into the front of the hips. You should feel quite a bit of space. Finding just some softness in your wheel or into your bridge pose. Trying to become aware of your attitude. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, slowly release it down. Once you're down, wind wipe your knees. And then we're going to go for our second back bend. So you can choose your wheel pose or you can choose your bridge pose. Or maybe what you like to do is find your Viparita Dandasana, that pose where you interlace your hands behind like a headstand. I'm going to show you how to get into that. So you're going to lift your hips up and you're going to lift your crown of your head up. Once it's up, you bring the crown of the head back down. Bring your hands now down onto the ground so that the elbows can come onto the ground, lifting your head up and opening up here into the front of the body. Viparita Dandasana. From there, you're welcome to come into your wheel before you come out, or you can come straight out. And once you're out, wiggle your knees. Find some release in the lower back. Preparing yourself for your last back bend. So when you're ready, finding your position, choosing which back bend suits you best. Focusing on the front of the hips, lifting the hips up, and then releasing the shoulders if you're going for your full wheel. Maybe if you're in your full wheel and you found more opening, walk your feet in a little bit more and see if you can tighten your back bend. Breathing deeply, opening up as much as you can, straightening through your legs to allow the chest to move towards the back of your mat. Finding just softness here into the front of the body. Pressing your legs towards each other as much as you can. Take a deep breath in. On the exhalation, slowly lower down. And now once you're down, hug your knees into your chest. Giving yourself that nice little bit of release. Maybe circles with your knees. And then bringing your forehead towards your knees and rock yourself up into a seated position. Taking your time as you're rocking. And then once you are seated, bringing your left leg to the outside of your right hip, your right foot to the outside of your left knee, and give yourself a nice little twist over to the right side in your Ardha Matsyendrasana. Releasing the twist, releasing the spine in a twist. Taking a deep breath in. Twist a little bit deeper on the exhale. And again, taking a deep breath in. And release a little bit more on the exhale. One more time, deep breath in. And release. Take a deep breath in, coming out of the pose and changing sides. The right foot goes to the outside of your left hip. The left foot goes to the top of the knee, and then hug your knee into your chest. Twisting over to the left side. Stretching out here into the glutes, the outside of your left hip. Sometimes in this position you can feel the psoas and the iliacus just being a little bit pinchy here into your hip. If that's what if that's what you feel, just soften into that. Taking a deep breath in, lifting. Exhale, twisting. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, twist. One more time, deep breath in. Exhale. And then the inhalation, slowly release, turning yourself around so that your head is at the front of the mat. The feet are turning towards the back of your mat. And once you're here, lifting your legs up, interlacing your hands behind your knees. Let your legs just hang into your hands. Finding your Viparita Karani. Beautiful releasing pose at the end of the practice. If part of your practice is a shoulder stand, or you want to practice any variations, then please feel free to go ahead. You can find your finishing sequence. If you're laying like this with your legs up, maybe close your eyes and then feel the grounding sensation into the lower back. Checking in for a moment to see how you feel. We've been working here deep into the hip flexors, to the psoas muscle. Check in to see how that feels you, how that makes you feel at the end of the practice. What does it leave you with? Connecting into your sacral space, that space just above your pubic bone. And staying connected to that space as you repeat the mantra to yourself, I go with the flow. I go with the flow. I go with the flow. Indicating that you let go, that you feel, that you move. I go with the flow. And whenever you feel ready, you can find your Shavasana, a beautiful pose at the end of your practice where you're just laying down, the hands are next to the hips, and taking a moment here just to connect. Our Shavasana is that place where we can let go, where we can really feel how we're being carried by the earth, how we don't have to hold ourselves up, where we can let go of our ego, of the image that we hold up of ourselves, where we can let go of our judgments and our expectations, and where we can just arrive in that space of gratitude, that space of connection to who we really are. I invite you to stay here for as long as feels is right for you. Having moved here deep into your psoas muscle, hopefully you feel here at the end of the practice that you're grounded, that you have been able to release some of the tension, some of the stress that you might hold into that part of your body. Maybe you've been able to connect to this sense of the circulation of the energy that you can move from this space into the rest of your body. Thank you for practicing today with me. With love and gratitude. Namaste.